Similarly, today, isn't it great to be in this hall with socialists, trade unionists, internationalists, and good comrades? Because the role of the left, the role of socialists, has never been more important at this time of crisis. And you don't need me to tell you, because you live it, that in each crisis that occurs, there's a choice. Through struggle, we either win the struggle and come out of the crisis in a better position as a society, or we lose the struggle in that moment of crisis and come out of that situation in a worse position as a society. In 1945, after the Second World War, we won the struggle for a better society and ended up with that consensus, which lasted for decades. But then in 1979, the outcome of that crisis was the neoliberal consensus which has ruled the roost in this country and around too much of the world for the last 40 years. We meet today in a crisis again. So the choice is clear. Through our struggle, do we believe that we can come out of this crisis in a better position as a society, or do we think we're going to go backwards? I think we can move forwards. I think there is a sea change amongst the public, and other speakers have said it already. There is support for these strikes. There is support for these strikes because people know that the system under which we live is rotten, it's wrong, but it is a system, I'm afraid, which is working. I hear so many times people saying, oh, the system isn't working. The system is working, and I'm here to tell you that because this system wasn't designed to help nurses, postal workers, firefighters, teachers, and the working class in all its diversity. This system was designed for the super rich, and that's why the billionaires are doing so well in this crisis. So we need, out of this moment of crisis, we need to win a system change, a system that puts people and planet before the pursuit of profit. And I believe that we can do that because people are waking up. And so let's carry on showing solidarity with the RMT, the Communication Workers Union, the Royal College of Nurses, and the FBU as well, as they backed the strike action, and ASLEF as well, and all the unions either in struggle or preparing for struggle. And let's fight back against this disgraceful demonisation of working class people by this government of the elites and their friends in the right-wing press. And let's recognise that there's two main tools in the armoury of the establishment against those like ourselves who are fighting for a better society. One is demonisation and the other is demoralisation. And we've seen, haven't we? We saw it with Scargill and the miners. We saw it more recently with Jeremy. We've seen what they do when they try and demonise those who fight for working class people and for a better society. We're getting used to that, and I think next time we'll face it down and beat it. But demoralisation is an even more insidious tool against progressive movements, in my view. And you see people from our own movement, and I understand it, who have ended up being defeated almost temporarily by that push for demoralisation. Because the establishment wants you all to think there's no point. You can't change anything. What's the point? Nothing ever changes for the better. They want you to give up, and even better, they'd like you to give up and spend all your day on Twitter trying to get everyone else to give up as well. But there are no prizes for giving up. And our history shows that the demoralisation, this idea that you can't change anything, is completely untrue. We've got to look back to the fact that when people said there's a campaign for women to get the vote, the equivalents of the demoralisers at the time said, oh, women will never get the vote. That's a pipe dream. They said that children will always be going to work down mines or up chimneys from the age of 8 in the way that Keir Hardie, the founder of the Labour Party, did. That will always be the case. You've got no chance of ever stopping that. People said you'll never get a national health service free for everyone in our society. People said you'll never get workers' rights. People throughout our history have said these things to demoralise us, and the demoralisers have been proven wrong time and time again. They said apartheid in South Africa would never be overturned, that segregation in the United States of America would last forever. And when you're living through that period, it's very easy to think things have always been like this, things will always be like this. But our movement is a historical and living testimony to the fact that you can change things for the better, and that the working class in all its diversity, when united, not just by ideas, but by organisation, can and will change things for the better. So winning the trade union struggles isn't enough. Winning a Labour government, getting the Tories out, as Alex says, isn't enough. We need to make sure that the next Labour government is as transformative as possible. So we need to organise inside the Labour Party, outside the Labour Party, for the policies our community needs. That does mean taking the railways, of course, back into public ownership, as the next Labour government will. That does mean repealing the anti-trade union laws. And of course, it means a £15 an hour national minimum wage, regardless of age. It does mean a massive programme of council house building. And it does mean working through our democratic structures and through campaigning everywhere we can to ensure that the next Labour government doesn't stick by those miserly austerity Tory spending plans. And we need to achieve that green industrial revolution, that green socialist New Deal, through well-paid, unionised jobs which creates a better future for our communities and a viable way forward for people and planets. And we can achieve these things. As I say, we've achieved great things in our past as a movement, but it's time to move forward. It's time to learn the lessons of our victories from the past, but also learn the lessons from the defeats of our past. And we can't be prisoners of our past. We must learn from it, be inspired from it, and learn that in this period of intensified struggle, there's a duty on all socialists to do everything we can to ensure that this is the moment when we create a new consensus that can last for decades and dump the neoliberal economic and political orthodoxy into the dustbin of history where it belongs. Solidarity from our trade union comrades who give us such a boost. I was very enthused to hear today from Nabila as the leader of Young Labour, and from Jess, who's officially no longer young, are you? But is on the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, where I'm sure you'll have a fantastic time standing up for socialist principles. But that's so important, isn't it? We all have to serve the struggle in different ways. So I want to end really with a thought, and it's a thought from my hero, or one of my heroes, Tony Benn. I'm very proud to be secretary of the Socialist Campaign Group of Labour MPs, a group that Tony Benn set up in the early 80s. And Tony Benn said, and he's right, that socialism is the flame of anger against injustice and the flame of hope that you can build a better world. When I was there yesterday in Parliament Square with all the posties, I could feel the heat of that flame, the heat of a flame burning brightly. At the sessions today and hearing the other speakers, I can feel that flame as well. Let that flame illuminate the injustices in our society and light the way for us to build a better consensus for the next few decades going forward. The Tories know what they're about, and I promise, Matt, I will finish on this. The Tories are pushing through an anti-democratic counter-revolution. I mentioned earlier about the fight for women to get the vote, the fight for the working class to get the vote. The Tories understand that in our society there are three main ways of fighting back against unjust policies: on the protest, on the picket line, and in the voting booth. They've sought to make peaceful protest criminalised. They're trying to make strike action in practice illegal. And now they're pushing through this voter suppression strategy with voter ID to try and suppress the working class vote, and in particular the black and minority ethnic working class vote and the votes of young working class people. These things are hard-won democratic freedoms, won by those who came before us. So when we consider the flame of anger against injustice and the flame of hope that we can build a better world, we need to understand that the torch that we're carrying forward is the torch of democracy, political democracy, economic democracy, mass democracy. That's the way forward to a better society. Thank you very much.